When you say, Chad, meet with your financial advisor regularly, what does regularly mean?
If you feel comfortable that you need to meet with us every year, that's great. If it's every quarter, that's fine. Whatever that individual needs, as far as the frequency of contact, we want to accommodate that.
Now, we know, too, as Americans, right, a whole lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, are utilizing credit cards and have accumulated debt. And maybe when they think of retirement or saving, they're like, are you kidding? I'm barely feeding the family this week. What are your thoughts? Can we still help that individual too?
Yeah, absolutely. So with high interest rates, debt is becoming a problem, right? You could have large amounts of debt when interest rates were very low and not have it be so impactful. But now with interest rates being higher, it's tough to have much debt at all because you're paying so much in interest. And that's a real issue that the families are facing all over the place. But limiting that debt to smart debt is one thing that's critical. Don't go into debt for things that you just kind of would like to have or want, right? It's really the core needs, your home, a car, not for a TV or something that you could possibly live without. So getting smart debt is important. But I do think, like I mentioned earlier too, there is an ability to save and pay down debt at the same time. If we're diligent, if we have a plan in place, if we have somebody helping us with that plan, we can still save, create an emergency fund, and make sure that we're managing our debt appropriately as well. I don't think those two are mutually exclusive.
Okay.
You can do some of both to be successful.
Okay, so if I'm waiting to pay off that credit card before I come in and meet with a financial advisor, I shouldn't wait. I should just come, right? Because it's like, I don't want to, take all my debts with me to meet with somebody. Let's get rid of those first and then come meet with someone. Is that not the case?
It's a conversation we have all the time.
Okay.
And some of it is based on how you feel emotionally as a human being too. If it doesn't make financial sense for me to pay off my house, but yet it makes emotional sense, we have to talk about that. If I'm going to sleep better at night, if I just feel this great sense of satisfaction because I paid off this debt, even if it would actually make more sense from a mathematical perspective to invest that money and make the difference between those rates, it might still be the best thing for that individual to just pay down the debt because they're going to feel so much better about it. So it's not just the finances, it's the confidence level that an advisor can add to your life. If you're going to feel more confident and more secure knowing your house is paid off versus having some money in the bank, that's probably the right approach for you. But a good advisor will ask the right questions to understand how you feel about those things.
Okay. So a lot of that does come back to our behaviors.
It does, absolutely.
Finances are an emotional thing, is what you're telling us.
They are. Always have been, always will be.
Yeah, I love that. So what does it look like when we're developing this financial plan? What are like the first steps? What do I need to come prepared with for this meeting?
Yeah, there's not a lot of preparation work. I mean, you understand your own preferences. You understand how you feel about risk, how you feel about the future. A good advisor will ask questions to get you thinking maybe a little more deeply about how you feel about the future. And it's not just, hey, how much money do you think you'll need when you retire or in the future at some point? It's, what do you want that retirement to look like? We make retirement decisions based on emotions, not on dollars and cents. So do you want to golf a lot? Do you want to meet with your grandkids? Do you want to travel? Depending on the answers to those, the financial application to that may change quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right. I know people that are retired and live very well on Social Security alone. They don't have expensive lifestyles. That's great. They can save even some of their Social Security, right? But there are those too that have a different vision of what that retirement dream is, which is going to require some more money. So understanding how you really truly want your retirement to look and feel is one of the most important steps. And then the money stuff can come later. And we don't ask people to ever plan out their entire retirement. That would be overwhelming, right? Retirements nowadays are sometimes 20, 30, maybe 30 plus years because we're living a lot longer.
Yes.
So it would not be fair to say, what does your entire retirement look like? Well, let's look at the next 5 to 7 years of your retirement and plan that out really well. And then we'll meet again and we'll plan something else. That would be like asking a 20-year-old to say, tell me about the entirety of your working career. What's it going to look like? Well, we don't know that yet. We can probably tell you the next 5, but let's work on it in chunks at a time to make sure we're successful.
Okay. And so with that life expectancy increasing, do we need to be saving more? We're going to be working longer? I mean, we're going to live into our hundreds now?
Yeah, living longer for many is a positive thing. I think some maybe get a little worried about it because if you retire at 65, which is a traditional retirement age, you could easily, by the numbers, have a 35-year retirement. Certainly 20 is a very, very high likelihood that you would have a 20-year retirement. So in the past, when people needed to save for a 5 or 10-year retirement, we're going to need to plan for a 20 to 30-year retirement. So you need to save more, yes, but you also have more time on your side. So like we talked about the growth potential with time, you have more of that as well.
Okay.
And with pensions being less common than they once were, it's Social Security plus whatever you've saved. So do you need to save more? I think the answer to that is yes.
Okay. Something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
So let's say I've saved, but when I come and sit down with my financial advisor, things aren't looking the way I expected.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What are next steps? Is that why an advisor comes into play?
Yeah, that's why you meet regularly. That's why you reassess your needs. The one thing that we know about the future is that it is not going to go like we think, right? We like to think we can plan it, and we can plan, and we can make the very best decisions based on what we know today. But we don't know the future, and we're not going to know the future. So a good advisor would meet with you regularly to say, okay, we're off our plan a little bit. Let's make a tweak here or there to make sure we get back on track. If it has to be a fairly small, simple adjustment, great. If it has to be a larger adjustment, great. An advisor doesn't shy away from the conversation of you may have to work a little bit longer, or you can retire sooner than you thought. Like one is a very positive conversation, one's a little bit challenging, but you need someone that's going to be real with you and say, you want to retire now? You probably can't. And if you hate your job, that's a tough thing to hear, right? But we have to have those honest, frank conversations.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of when either of those situations have happened, maybe with some of the credit union members you've met with?
Yeah, I remember a member story from not too long ago. Was a farmer, if I recall, and he wanted to retire. He was done farming. And so the advisor worked with him to put him on an income plan that would match what he thought he could generate in retirement. And he said, don't retire yet. Live on this income plan for 3 months and let me know how you feel about that. So he did. And 3 months later, they met, and the farmer said, I cannot live like that. I can't buy the things I want. I can't do the things I want. I can't live like that. Okay, then you probably should keep farming for a few more years. And that was a decision that he made. So if we make that rash decision to just leave and then we realize, oh, my income's not what I want, now it might be too late. I mean, you don't want to go back seeking your job back or looking for a different job when you weren't expecting to have to do that.
Right.
So practicing a retirement plan is a good idea if you can do it as well.
I love that. So practicing before you actually hit the button. Okay, I love it. And tell me more, too, about how our decisions affect the overall plan, right? Like I've heard this thing of, oh yeah, we all need 7 different income streams to make sure that we're millionaires by the time we retire. How are all those little decisions, you mentioned like those small little decisions we make each day are what's going to add up in the long run?
Yeah, well, there's no get-rich-quick scheme I've ever seen that really works.
Dang it, Chad.
I wish there was. I'll keep looking, and if I find one, I'll let you know. But I've not seen one. You hear about them all the time.
Yeah.
But high returns with little to no risk just is not possible. It doesn't work. So it really does come down to the little decisions that you make repeated over time. So I've heard it said, small thing multiplied by consistency can turn into a great thing. So that is certainly true of retirement savings, right? I talk to my children who are in their 20s, starting their first job, and they look at me and say, I don't know how I'm ever going to get to where I could even retire. When I'm kind of proud that they're thinking about it at 20 because it's dear to my heart.
Good job.
But they think there's no way I could ever do it. I said, trust me, if you put in a little bit, just start. Start wherever you are and put in a little bit and be very, very consistent with that. Don't take it out for any other need or want. Just save it for retirement. You will get there. And if you run the numbers with them, they say, there's no way I could get to where I have that much money. No, you can if you are consistent with it over time. They have 40 years before they're going to retire still.
Yeah.
And so certainly there's plenty of time to make that work. So those small decisions end up making a big, big difference later on in life. It's just like learning how to do any particular skill. There's the idea of 10,000 hours to get really, really good at something, to become a pro at something. Investing is no different. Those little efforts multiplied over days and days and days and weeks and months and years will be what pays off in the end.
I love that. One thing I wanted to bring up too is this. You had mentioned there's no, quick fix for us becoming wealthy, but we see a whole lot of messaging out there regarding this. Tell me a little bit about some of those pitfalls and maybe how it involves fraud.
Well, unfortunately, we do have situations at times where people are dealing with nefarious characters who are trying to get at their money, and we have to step in and try to help them understand what they should do, maybe what they shouldn't. Don't respond in certain situations. So if it sounds too good to be true, if it's high payoff with no risk, it's just not true. We unfortunately have to deal with member situations occasionally where they believe wholeheartedly that Prince in Egypt or fill in the blank, whatever scam it is legit. And with AI today, it's getting even more complicated because you've heard stories probably of a grandmother saying, well, that's my granddaughter on the phone. She needs money. She's in Italy somewhere. But it's not. It's an AI-generated voice. So you have to be really, really careful. If somebody calls you claiming to be from the police, the fire station, even from your bank, and they're demanding or asking for money, don't fall for that. Verify it independently. If it's your bank is not going to call and ask for money. Your local police force is not going to call you and ask for money, other than maybe a donation once in a while, but that will be legitimate. Just be very cautious of what you hear when it comes to this will cost you a little bit of money and you'll get a great reward. It's probably a scam.
Okay, so be watchful of that.
Yes.
Whether it's phone calls, emails, text messages, right? All the things.
All of them, and there's so many of them you have to watch out for. The link that you want to click, the text that seems very appealing, just delete it.
Okay, love that. So let's say I've watched this and I am ready to meet with a financial advisor. Chad, how do I go about it?
Yeah, so the advisors that work for Mountain American Investment Services are all listed on our website, macu.com. And if you go to the investments or wealth management page, you can see all their pictures, you can read their bios, and there's actually a link you can click to schedule an appointment right then. If you'd prefer to call or email, that information is there as well. So, and their locations are listed as well. So if you'd prefer to meet with somebody in person at one of our branches, we're happy to do that. If you'd prefer to meet over the phone, we have a group of advisors that work centrally that can meet with you over the phone and do a virtual appointment. So any way you want to meet with us, we're happy to accommodate.
I love that. So when you say, Chad, meet with your financial advisor regularly, what does regularly mean?
Well, we like to leave that up to the person we're working with to say, if you feel comfortable that you need to meet with us every year, that's great. If it's every quarter, that's fine. Again, the role of an advisor is to add comfort and peace to that person's life in a lot of ways. And whatever that individual needs, as far as the frequency of contact, we want to accommodate that.
Love it. Well, any other parting thoughts, Chad, when it comes to investing, saving for retirement that you want to share?
I think be a little cautious about, like we mentioned, some of the nefarious characters out there. Watch that very carefully. Be consistent in your planning, be consistent in your savings, and work with financial professionals, whether they're with us or elsewhere, that are legitimate, that they're professionals. You hear a lot about the term fiduciary in the market today. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you never heard that term, but it's become a more common thing that you hear. Are you a fiduciary? And you can check that. You can verify that through a number of means to know if that advisor is a fiduciary. And what a fiduciary is someone who is legally and ethically obligated to act in the best interests of the people that they're helping. So no self-interest at all. They're legally and ethically obligated to act in your best interest. And you want to verify that you're working with someone like that when you are putting your life savings in front of them and asking them to invest it for you.
I love that. All right. Well, Chad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Yes. And I always learn something new from you, and hopefully you all did as well. And we will see you on the next episode of Guiding You Forward.